I heard one person is that we are fine. Are you fine, sir?
Yes, I'm fine.
How do you know you're fine?
First, I know that I'm fine because everything's okay.
What is everything?
Everything. My healthy and also yeah, but most important, my will have good health.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Awesome. I mean, these are questions that many of us don't really think about, but they're very critical. Like, if you say, I'm fine, how do you know you're fine? Maybe you're just referring to one aspect of your life, like, I'm fine because I have not yet been fired. Or I'm fine because I'm not sick. And yet, on the other side, there are a lot of other things going on. So, but it's very critical. So, just to get some feedback in terms of how you felt about yesterday's, we've already gotten one feedback about yesterday's session. We'll keep in mind of that. But I just wanted to hear from you. What do you remember from yesterday's session before we go to today's session? Anyone? If someone asked you, what did you talk about yesterday, what would you say? What is it that you remember? What stood out for you? Let's start here and then come.
I think what stood out for me was stage management as well as audience analysis.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel if I have to communicate effectively, I need to analyze my audience, and then I think everything else will now follow because I will know what tone I have to use, how I can display the message that I'm going to have, what language I can use, and also how my facial expression be, how I'm supposed to present myself after analyzing the audience.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Yes, sir.
Also looked at audience behavior, where we have discovered that we need to analyze the behavior of the audience so that we can relate them during our presentation.
Okay. Interesting. What else? The ladies? Or we'll point at random. And since the two of you who were here yesterday, random could be either of the two. Let's start from there. Anything that you remember from yesterday's session?
Okay, body language. Yes, you say when you are presenting, you have to make sure that you have an open palm posture so that you show that you're not hiding anything. Apart from that, you also mentioned to say ensure that this part of the body is always active and do not put your hands below your lower body.
Awesome. Yes. Anything?
From what I got, we also talked about you understanding the subject that you're communicating to someone, and also making sure that the person understands the subject. And also talk about eye contact. If you are talking to someone, make sure you are looking to them directly so that they understand what you're communicating. And also you have to be mindful on the pace at which you communicate, whether you don't have to be too slow or too fast so that people understand what you're communicating. Then voice projection also shows whether you are confident about what you're communicating or not.
Interesting. That's a very good way to remember what we talked about yesterday. And one of the things that we're going to talk about as we keep going, I don't know why no one talked about the pause and the engagement. I thought that was vivid enough. Before the marriage, and in this pictorial example we talked about before you marry the audience in terms of them hearing what you're saying, you need to engage them. But one of the key elements that we're going to be talking about as we have our conversations, of course not only today, not only the next week that we're having conversations, but throughout, is the usage of the filler words. So part of what we'll be doing when we're evaluating you, I hope you've already started working on your speech. We'll also be looking at the amount of the filler words that you use. And filler words are words like you know, and when you use more ands than you should. Those are filler words. And one of the ways to tell that is doing what we talked about yesterday. You pause. Because people use filler words because they're thinking in that process when you're saying, so yesterday, this is what happened. That part, you're trying to think, to recollect what happened yesterday and then speak out. But instead of saying, you can pause, you can say, yesterday, this is what happened. They came early in the morning and we were all seated. I could say that so here's what happened yesterday. They came early in the morning. The doesn't do anything really. Whether I say it or I don't, it doesn't have any effect. But when I say it, it causes distraction to the people that are listening. Because imagine you're trying to close a deal and someone is asking like, how much do you, like, what are your costs? And then like, so we charge, so you know, the way we charge is we send you a contract which you get to, like, even the client will be like, are we in good hands here? But when you pause, it gives you control to think about what to say, and then you ultimately say it. Filler words are everybody's nightmare in public speaking and communication. People use them every time. I can give you a 10-minute speech, and you might not hear because even when you're writing a speech, those are not there in the words of the speech. You will have the necessary amount of ands, the necessary amount of so, the necessary amount of because. But anything beyond that becomes cloudy, clustered, and distractive. And it puts you in a place as disorganized or impromptu, as they would say. I would like us to pay attention to those filler words because they'll become critical in how we build up a good speaking portfolio for ourselves. Our conversation today, and our time starts now, is going to highlight on how that public speaking is a whole body affair. Everything that we can physically see on your body plays a key role when you're speaking. From the color of your hair to the color of the shoes you're wearing. Everything speaks something. And we're going to show how that, but more importantly, the physical features like our senses. Of course, starting from the head, your ears, your eyes, your hands, your legs, all these play a very key role in how you position yourself as an effective communicator. And we're going to walk through these fundamentals in this session. So here's what one author said, and these are communication experts. He says, communication is 20% what you say, and the 80% is how you say it. So if I say, come here, for that to be effective communication, only 20% constitute of what I have said. But the way I will say it will translate into the rest of the 80%. If I say, come here, this is part of the come here statement. If I say, come here, it's still part of what I am saying. But how I am saying it will affect how the response will be received, or how the response will be given rather. So, if 80% constitute how you say things, then you want to make sure that you work on how you say them. And your body language or your body plays a key role on how you say those things. Now, we're going to be looking at this picture for our session. And I pray and hope that if anything, at least we will remember this picture, because it's very critical in our conversation today. Here's a scenario. The president is elected as the president of Zambia. When you are elected, you are president-elect. You know by any basic standard that you'll be giving your inaugural speech. Like you have to address the nation. You know, thank the voters, thank the supporters that, you know, like the funders and whatnot, all those people that played a key role in your election. You know that that will happen. It might happen maybe a week or two. Sometimes I think it's been a month after you are elected. So you know you will be speaking. What should you do if you know you'll be speaking? Anybody?
Sorry?
When you know you will be speaking at an event, what should you do? Pardon?
Prepare.
Prepare. And how do you prepare?
Write a
You write a speech, yes? And the other thing, how do you prepare? Yes, sir.
What you're going to dress.
What you're going to dress, yes. What you're going to wear, yes, sir.
Give the speech in Tuesday
Uh-huh.
and just practice.
That's exactly what I wanted to top it as a cherry on the cake. We start with the head. Now, this will sound as basic, but it's extremely important. You need to memorize your speech. In developed country, of course, even here they do it, especially if you've ever been hosted, let's say at ZNBC. I've gone there for interviews many times. When you're seated with a presenter here, there's a screen in front of you which you who's watching, you don't see. So while we're seated here, he's asking me questions, but he's reading the questions from what is called a teleprompter. So that you who are seated at home, you don't see that he's reading. Why would he not want you to see that he's reading? Because it doesn't convey as much conviction that he knows what he's talking about if he has to read it. So what should an effective communicator do? Use the head to memorize your speech. And that's the reason why we've given you those speech templates. On the first day, write the speech, finish it on time, memorize the speech. No one will be reading the speech on the 12th of December. You'll be speaking from your head. Now, here's the president who's just been elected. He knows, in 1 month time, I'll be giving an inaugural speech to thank the voters and everybody who took part in putting me into this particular position. He doesn't take time to write the speech because someone else writes for them. And of course, there's a big scandal. I don't know if some of you saw it. There's a president, I think that was the president of Ghana at some point. The person who wrote the speech for him plagiarized the whole speech from a presidential speech from the United States of America, like word for word. I'll try to play it as we go on. Word for word. Even the good morning was plagiarized. Now, the difference was the president in America who gave that speech did not read the speech. He was speaking without anywhere to read from. But this Ghanaian president was actually reading the speech, word for word. And of course, that guy received a lot of criticism. Like, why would he write such a speech for the president? But the president was also criticized. Like, why didn't you go through and why wouldn't you know? These are global leaders that should know what other global leaders are doing. So why couldn't you just verify that this information is correct? But this happens a lot. I see this happening with ministerial statements. A minister would know in 6 months' time, there's this special day or climate day or day of earth or whatever it is. I'll be giving a speech. But they'll not bother to memorize the speech. What do they do? The ministerial speeches that we see on ZNBC, they are not even more than 10 minutes. But the man will come and say, good morning, countrymen and women. They'll put their speech here. And this is what they do sometimes. If they are reading it here, they haven't held it. They'll say, good morning, countrymen and women. Today, the day so marks a very remarkable day. And as we celebrate this day as a country, we are so excited. And as a ministry, these are things that you should know as a minister that fall under your ministry. Why not take time to go through the speech, memorize the speech, master it, go back to what Alexander Gregg says, get into the subject, and get the subject into you, and then come on TV and tell us, because you are telling us. You know the information. So if you have to read, then it means anyone else can do that job. Put me in front of a camera and I'll read that speech. But even when you are reading, there are some people, like for example, if I was reading something here, you would not really tell the difference if you are not seeing me reading. Because even as I am reading, I'm adding my own flavor in terms of what I am reading. But there are some people, even when they are reading, they still have problems with commas, problems with this full stop, problems with pronouncing certain words, and you see how this affects what is perceived when you're talking. So memorize the speech. If you know you're going to be talking about numbers, have them in your head. There's a place we used to work at, and our sales director used to say, you need to have your numbers here. If you know that this month we have done, say, $2 million on this particular product, you need to know that it's $2 million. If there's anything that has changed on that 2 million, you need to know that this has changed. And what has changed, there's a decline of 2% and 3% or 5% or whatever percentage that it is. The fact that you know it gives an impression that you understand what you're doing, even if you don't understand what you're doing. And that's the reason why people that communicate without having to read anywhere, they are perceived as intelligent, they are perceived as wise, they are perceived as knowledgeable, and they are perceived as the man or the woman for the job. Here's another example. All the big heads of states that you know in the world, none of those people write those speeches. They have people like in this, like in the room, and then they'll have from this particular sector, this sector, this sector, they'll have information, and then they'll have one person like me who's a communicator, frames all that into one speech. Then we go through it, we make sure the grammar is okay and whatnot, and then they'll have me, who's a trainer, goes and gives the president the speech. This is the speech you will be giving. Let's go through it. Read it to me. Let me tell you where you need to add some emotions, where you need to add what and what and what not. By the time the president is coming to speak, he doesn't need to read the speech. But in some cases where he did not have enough time to master the speech, even with heads of states, they'll put a teleprompter for them between the camera and what you are watching. So they'll be standing here and they'll be reading, the words they'll be moving, behind the camera. And you who's listening, you'll be thinking they're speaking from their head. Why would they go that length to just make sure that they don't show them reading? It's because memorizing your speech shows competence of what you're talking about. Memorize your speech. We're back to memory verses in Sunday school. The more you speak from your head, the more confidence that you show to the people that are listening to you. It's like, for example, telling your wife, I love you so much. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. And you're reading that. If I am the wife, I will not believe you. Even if you paid the highest amount of lobola. Like, why would you have to read it? But if you're speaking from your heart, that's how, and I'm giving you this as a cheat code. Men that are good at lying, they're very good at communicating. They can tell you a lie and you can buy into it. Part of the reason why they say like salespeople won't go to heaven, I've heard this in many times, that salespeople won't go to heaven, because as a salesperson, you need to understand your product, right? But you don't go to a client, you're telling them, yeah, so we offer the following services. So we offer invoice discounting, we offer audits, and we offer this. Like, why are you reading if you work at that company? Shouldn't you already understand what you're talking about? And demonstrating understanding is you speaking without having to refer anywhere. Memorize the speech. Your head plays a key role to memorize the speech. And in the process of memorizing, you can forget maybe one line or two lines. But because it is your speech, you can improvise. And me who's listening to you, I don't know what you want to talk about. So whether you make a mistake or not, I don't know. But when you react because you've made a mistake, then I know you made a mistake. There are many speeches that I've given, and some of the things that I've said were not part of what I needed to say initially, but I still stick to the main point. And that's why the structure of the speech template has the structure where you put the main point and then you have the sub-points. That is very critical, because as you keep speaking, as you keep communicating, confidence, that you want to inspire confidence. It's like leadership. There are some people that might be good, but they don't inspire confidence. And because of that, people won't follow. Even when they're choosing CEOs. Sometimes it's not that maybe they have the most degrees. You could have one CEO who may not have the most degrees, but there's just what he does that just makes people follow what he's doing and follow what he's saying. And that's where leadership becomes very critical. And now, if you don't exude this confidence to the people, how then should they follow you? You're a husband. You can't even lead in the house, and leading has got nothing to do with Bible believing. Yes, sir, right? So you are in this house, and then you're asking, you should respect me, I'm the head of the house. But sir, as the head of the house, even when it comes to making critical decisions, you're not even sure. The people that are under you then begin to doubt what you say. Even if you know what you're talking about, but if you're not confident enough, they begin to doubt what you say. So memorize the speech and speak from your mind, speak from your head, speak from your heart. That strikes a difference. The second one, we talked about it yesterday, but we're going to re-emphasize, is eye contact. Look at the people you're talking to. Look at the people you're talking to. People feel special. People feel loved when you're looking at them. Again, if you've played those games where they manipulate you or it's magic, the magician would want to make sure they maintain eye contact with you so that you don't even see what they're doing with their hands. And before you know it, they do something amazing and you're surprised. You are not focusing on what they were doing, you're focusing on eye contact. And so it is with communication. You cannot convince someone who you are not looking at that you do or that you believe in what you are saying. And eye contact doesn't have to be everyone. You could be speaking, like 2 years ago, I was speaking at an event and there were 10,000 people. I can't possibly look at all the 10,000 people in their eyes. But of course, at the stage, where the stage was and where the people were sitting, there was a bit of some distance because it was in the stadium. But based off how I am positioning my head and how I am moving, even if people were a bit far from me, they could tell, they could see that I was looking at them, not on top of their heads. So eye contact is a significant force that you can use to drive conviction. Because remember, when you're communicating, one of the things that you're trying to do is to drive conviction. And if you can't drive conviction, then you have failed the test of communication. So look at the people that you're talking to. Show interest. Show that you want to be there. It's like it's like you're talking to someone, and then after some time, and then you're like, "Hey, are you here?" They're like, yeah. Continue. What are you saying? You know those late night conversations where, where it says we will need to talk. If you are sleeping, you will have to wake up and look at the person and then talk about it. Why is that important? Why can't you talk while I'm sleeping? Because I need you here. Like I need you to be like, but I'm here. Like, you can even hold my hand while you're talking to ensure that I haven't gone anywhere. But like eye contact makes the whole difference around whether you are listening or not. You may not want to look at people, but for the sake of communication, you would want to look at them. In fact, there are some people who are so shy that they'd rather wear shades so that you can't see their eyes when they're looking at you. But of course, in the grand scheme of things, you can't meet the president and you're wearing shades. Come on. Or you can't meet your in-laws. Or even your wife or your husband and you're wearing shades. Like, let's talk. Like, what are you hiding? So eye contact creates a rapport, creates an environment for the conversation. There's some people that say, no, he fell for her eyes. Because her eyes were blue. And they could literally spread an ocean with a single gaze. And you're looking at them. That becomes a point of contact for the rapport that you're trying to build and the environment of necessitated attention. Right now, it's very hard to get people's attention. One of the ways that you can get people's attention is by looking at them. Because once they know you are looking at them, they know they will see when they get on their phone or when they look up or they do something. And in trying to avoid you seeing all that, someone will try to pay as much attention while you are talking. It will only be boring if you are boring as a speaker. But there is nothing they can do because if they try to look elsewhere, you will see that they are looking elsewhere. So keep a good eye contact. And like we said yesterday, don't make it look weird where you're looking at someone like that, come on, like that becomes something else. But a good eye contact will be able to achieve you the results of effective communication. Number 3, and this is very important, the mouth. Now, the way you pronounce words, and I would like us to pay particular attention, the way you pronounce or you enunciate words creates a very big impression on how the words are heard. I know there are people that could have an R and L syndrome. That is everywhere. I know that there are some people that stammer. That's everywhere. It could be anybody. I know there are people that never went to school, really. But communication is universal. You don't have to go to school to communicate. You have to communicate. So what should you do then when you are pronouncing words? Do not speak as fast so that you do not swallow some words. And I think they used to tell us this in high school. Like you are swallowing your words. You are swallowing your words not because the words are like a bowl of conflict and you are swallowing them. No. But the way they are pronounced, some of them are not coming out as clear as they should. That act causes a disturbance on how people are listening to you. So when you speak slowly and with great expressions, then people are hearing what you are saying clearly. You can hear what I am saying. But there are some people, if we ask you to speak in this room, and we put in some maybe a bit more complicated words to pronounce, there'll be a challenge. So you want to make sure that the way you pronounce the words is the correct way they should be pronounced. There are certain words like, okay, I wanted to use pneumono-ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis. That word is 45 letters. That same word, someone would have issues with pronouncing pneumono-ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis. Someone would have challenged pronouncing the word psychology because there's a P in front of it. So the others that will say psychology. I've heard that before. There are some people who pronounce pneumonia as pneumonia because there's a P in front of the N. So now, based on how you are saying those things now, they affect how the listeners get to hear what you are saying. So try by all means to pronounce the words the way they are supposed to be pronounced. If it's a brush and you say blush, that would mean something else. Because blush is blushing, you know. It's not the same as brushing. Like, oh, I brushed my hair or I brushed my shoes. If you say I blushed my shoes, you get a certain reaction. Now, here's how funny this is. Even when people know what you're trying to say, but if you don't say it in the way that you should say it, it will still get a negative reaction. So, what should you then do to perfect your art in terms of pronunciation? Speak slower. And try to use some great expressions when you are saying certain things. Even the way I'm reading the word expressions, there's R there, expressions. Someone else can say expressions. The same way. So the mouth plays a key role in how you enunciate words because your audience want to get you as clear as possible. There's some people, maybe they may not open their mouths as wide as some of us, but if there's anybody of you here who's even in a choir church or has been in a choir, they'll even say things like when you are singing, like you open your mouth, like your hand should be able to fit. That's how you're able to sing like those good notes, like those like choir gurus. They would say that you need to open your mouth wide. In fact, they would even go to an extent and say, if you are singing and you're still looking beautiful, then you're not doing a good job. Like you need to look ugly, like it's supposed to be an intense exercise. So why is that? It's because even when you're singing, if you don't open your mouth accurate enough, you end up missing the notes. So if the note is G and your mouth opens at a P level, the note won't come out as clearly as it should. So it is with public speaking and communication. There are some people who you've taught something and they say, but me, I heard you say this. Like, but that's not what I said. But like, maybe it wasn't even a statement, it was just one word. You say, pick it up, or maybe it was one word like come, or it was one word like drop, or it was one word like go. But the way you said it, the person heard it differently. The way you pronounced the words, the way your mouth's position was when you said that particular word. So enunciate the words correctly to give your audience an opportunity to hear you the way you meant to be heard. Of course, you don't need to look ugly when you're speaking. That only applies to singing. But the point is, when you are enunciating, when you are saying out words, they need to come out clearly and express them with some great expression. That helps you to position yourself in a way that you are not misquoted. You heard things like, no, you misquoted me. That's not what I meant. But like, why didn't you say what you meant? It's because of maybe the way the word came out. Sometimes you can say, I love you. But the word will come out will suggest either you do or you don't. Even if it is with raising kids. If you say certain things with a certain kind of pronunciation, it gets or it incites a certain kind of emotion within the kids. And even how they're going to respond to what you